Imagine for a moment that you are standing on Earth, a tiny blue speck adrift in a vast, silent ocean of stars. For billions of years, the cosmos has been whispering, flooding space with radiation, signals, and echoes from the birth of galaxies. And yet, among this endless noise, in 1977, humanity caught something different, something strange, something that shouldn't have been there at all. It lasted just 72 seconds, but it has haunted scientists for decades. A signal so mysterious, so inexplicable, that some believe it may have been the first greeting from an alien civilization. It is known simply as the WOW signal. But what exactly was it? Why did it appear, burn with intensity, and then vanish forever, never to return? And more importantly, could it mean we are not alone? The story begins on a warm summer night, August 15, 1977, at Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope. The telescope wasn't designed for stargazing. It wasn't looking for planets, moons, or galaxies. It was listening, tuning into the deep frequencies of the universe, hoping to catch whispers from beyond. Most nights, what it heard was mundane, static, background radiation, the cosmic hum of stars being born and dying. But then, for a single, breathtaking moment, something extraordinary pierced through the static. Astronomer Jerry Emin was scanning through the raw data, numbers printed out on reams of computer paper, when he noticed something out of place. The signal was strong, far too strong to be random background noise. In his excitement, he grabbed a red pen and circled the data, scrawling in the margins a single word that would forever mark this discovery: WOW. But here's the thing. The WOW signal wasn't just unusual because of its strength. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, near a group of stars that could, conceivably, harbor life-bearing planets. The signal was narrowband, meaning it was confined to a very specific frequency, 1420 MHz. That number is chillingly important. Why? Because 1420 MHz is the natural emission frequency of neutral hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, the building blocks of stars, planets, and life itself. Many scientists had long theorized that if an intelligent civilization wanted to send out a cosmic hello, hydrogen's frequency would be the universal beacon. So was it? Was this a deliberate message, or just a cosmic accident? The problem is, we may never know. The signal never repeated. Astronomers swung the telescope back to the same region of space dozens, even hundreds of times over the years. But silence. It was like a knock at the door that was never followed by footsteps, just one deafening bang, and then nothing. And that, of course, only deepened the mystery, because the WOW signal was too perfect, too precise. Unlike the random chatter of Earth's radio noise or the broad roar of natural cosmic radiation, this was clean, focused, intentional. The kind of thing you would expect not from nature, but from intelligence. Yet skeptics point out something unnerving: radio interference. Could it have been Earth's own technology bouncing back, a satellite, or a stray reflection of military communications? Some scientists lean toward that explanation, while others argue the frequency itself rules it out. The 1420 MHz band is internationally protected. No Earth-based transmitters are allowed to broadcast at that range. So if it wasn't us, then who? Even stranger is its fleeting nature. If it was a pulsar, a quasar, or some other astrophysical event, we should have been able to find it again. But after decades of searching, no natural explanation has fit. And so the WOW signal stands like a fingerprint on the glass of the cosmos, left behind by something, or someone, we may never identify. But here's the unsettling thought. What if that was the point? What if civilizations out there are deliberately brief, careful, sending only a momentary flash of presence like a lighthouse beam sweeping across the ocean? We happen to be in the right place at the right time to catch it once, but maybe, that was all we were ever meant to receive. And if that's true, then we have to ask, was it a message to us specifically, or just a broadcast into the void, a cosmic coin toss, hoping someone, somewhere, would hear it? Imagine ancient sailors lighting a fire on a distant shore, hoping another tribe would see the smoke. Did we stumble across alien smoke signals in the sky? The WOW signal is not the only unexplained radio burst ever detected. In recent years, astronomers have discovered strange phenomena called fast radio bursts, millisecond-long blasts of energy brighter than entire galaxies, yet vanishing almost instantly. Some repeat, others don't. Their origins remain one of the greatest puzzles in astrophysics. Could the WOW signal have been an early glimpse of the same phenomenon? Or was it something entirely different? Something artificial, perhaps, sent by minds far older and wiser than our own? One detail gnaws at researchers to this day. The intensity of the signal rose and fell in a consistent way with the rotation of Earth, as if the telescope had simply swept past a distant transmitter fixed somewhere in the stars. In other words, it behaved like a real beacon, like something out there was broadcasting steadily and we just caught it for a brief moment. If that's true, then somewhere in the constellation Sagittarius, there may still be a transmitter humming, endlessly, patiently, waiting for us to point our ears in exactly the right way at exactly the right time. And maybe, just maybe, we will hear it again. But then comes the most haunting question of all. What if we already did? What if the WOW signal wasn't meant to repeat? What if it was never a call, but an answer? What if the WOW signal was never a random accident, but a carefully aimed shot across the abyss of space? A single phrase, a single word, transmitted at a frequency no one could mistake, like a cosmic telegram. But instead of continuing the conversation, instead of repeating endlessly, it came once, then silence. Why? The unsettling possibility is this: perhaps we were being tested. Imagine an ancient lighthouse on a rocky shore. It flashes once, and only those who see it in that moment know where the land lies. The rest of the ocean remains in darkness. Could the WOW signal have been exactly that? A single flash of light in the void, meant to see if anyone, us, was watching? For decades, astronomers have pointed their ears toward that same patch of sky in Sagittarius, waiting for it to return. Dozens of powerful radio observatories have scoured the heavens, listening with patience and hope. Nothing, not a whisper. The WOW signal has remained one of a kind, like a ghost that passed through our reality only briefly, then vanished back into the unknown. And yet, doesn't that make it even more suspicious? If it were truly natural, wouldn't it appear again? Lightning strikes more than once. Stars pulse and flare in cycles. But intelligence? Intelligence chooses when to speak and when to remain silent. The conspiracy grows deeper when you realize the signal wasn't just strong. It was impossibly strong, stronger than anything expected from a natural source. To produce such a focused burst at 1420 megahertz would require technology far beyond our own at the time. In fact, even today, reproducing the WOW signal in exactly the same way would be a challenge. Could it really have been a message? Or perhaps a warning? Consider the frequency itself again, 1420 megahertz, the hydrogen line. Hydrogen is the most fundamental element, the atom that began the universe, the stuff of stars, the spark of life. It is the one universal constant that every civilization, no matter how alien, would know. By choosing hydrogen, whoever sent the signal was essentially saying, "We understand the universe as you do. We are scientists, thinkers, builders. We are like you." What could be a more powerful introduction than that? But if they were trying to say hello, why didn't they say more? Why not repeat? Why not continue? Perhaps the answer lies in something far darker. Maybe it wasn't meant for us at all. Maybe we were eavesdropping on a message sent between two distant civilizations, a transmission not meant for human ears. Did we stumble into alien business by accident? And if so, what exactly did we overhear? There's another, even more haunting theory. Maybe they know we heard it. Imagine if a signal was sent, just once, to see who might answer. If we had responded, perhaps they would have replied, but we didn't. We were too cautious, too divided, too unsure, and so the stars remained silent. Could it be that we failed the test? That the wow signal was our one chance to step into the larger conversation of the cosmos, and we missed it? But the mystery only deepens. In 2017, researchers proposed a startling explanation. Perhaps the wow signal wasn't alien at all, but natural. They suggested it may have come from a comet, specifically two comets, 266P Christensen and 335P Gibbs, which were passing near the region of the sky at that time. Comets release hydrogen gas, which can emit radio waves near the 1420 MHz frequency. Was it possible that the greatest cosmic mystery of the modern era was simply ice and dust? The theory sparked fierce debate. Some argued it was the long-awaited answer. Others dismissed it as grasping at straws. The comet explanation has holes. It doesn't fully account for the strength or the narrowband nature of the signal. Comets are messy, chaotic things, not precise transmitters. Could we really mistake a drifting ball of ice for a deliberate, laser-focused cosmic handshake? And so, the wow signal remains unsolved, neither fully natural nor fully dismissed as alien. It exists in a liminal space, a question mark etched into the history of science. But that question may be more important than any answer, because what it represents is possibility. For in that one brief moment, 72 seconds of sound from the stars, humanity was forced to confront a terrifying and exhilarating thought: we are not alone. Even if it was only a possibility, a flicker of something beyond us, it was enough to shake the foundations of our understanding. And this is where the story turns from science to philosophy. If the wow signal truly was a message, then what kind of civilization sent it? Were they ancient, far older than us, reaching out across millennia? Were they nearby, waiting, cautious of revealing too much? Or perhaps they are long gone, their message drifting like a bottle in the cosmic ocean, only now arriving at our shore. The truth is, the wow signal may be unsolvable. It may never return. And yet, its absence is its own kind of presence, because it leaves us wondering, searching, straining our ears toward the stars. Perhaps that was the true gift, not the message itself, but the endless hunger it sparked in us to listen harder, to look deeper, to imagine more. But here is the chilling thought that lingers. What if we are not the only ones listening? What if right now, somewhere beyond Sagittarius, another civilization caught a signal from us, a stray broadcast, a pulse of human radio leaking into the cosmos? What if they circled it, marked it with their own version of wow, and asked the same question we now ask of them? Who sent this? And should we answer? Imagine civilizations scattered like islands across the dark ocean of the universe. Each one, in its own way, building fires on the shore, signals of light and sound cast into the abyss, hoping, perhaps, that someone, somewhere, will notice. The wow signal may have been one such fire, flickering briefly across our perception, daring us to believe in others beyond ourselves. But the deeper we stare into this mystery, the more unsettling the possibilities become. If it was truly a message, then it suggests intention, and intention implies intelligence. Yet intelligence does not always mean friendliness. What if the wow signal wasn't a greeting, but a map? What if it was a marker, a beacon designed to say, here they are, the humans, right here? The idea sends shivers down the spine. For centuries, humanity has debated whether we should actively send signals into the cosmos, what is called active SETI, or messaging to extraterrestrial intelligence. Some believe it is our destiny to announce ourselves, to boldly declare our existence. Others warn of danger. Stephen Hawking himself cautioned against sending messages into space, comparing it to native tribes first encountering European explorers. We only have to look at ourselves, he said, to see how intelligent life might develop into something we wouldn't want to meet. If the WOW signal was indeed from another civilization, could it have been their version of active SETI, or was it bait? But perhaps we are projecting too much human fear onto the cosmos. Another possibility, far more hopeful, is that it was simply a test of physics, a demonstration of power. Imagine a civilization so advanced that transmitting across light years is trivial, like lighting a torch in the night. Perhaps they beam out narrowband bursts of hydrogen frequency signals at random intervals, a way of saying, "We are here. The universe is not empty. You only need to listen." In that case, the WOW signal was never meant to be personal. It was never directed at us. It was a message broadcast into the void, like graffiti on the cosmic wall. We exist. Still, the uniqueness of it gnaws at us. Why once and never again? Was it a one-time effort? Was the civilization that sent it destroyed before they could repeat it? Did we witness their last whisper, the fading echo of a people who no longer exist? Imagine if, billions of years from now, another world caught a faint recording of Earth's first radio transmissions, the voices of long-dead humans, the crackling of early television, the heartbeat of a civilization that once was. Would they, too, circle the data and write "wow" in their own language, wondering who we were? And yet, the WOW signal also forces us to confront our own limitations. In 1977, we caught it by chance. Our instruments were primitive compared to what we have now. We couldn't record as much data. We couldn't triangulate the exact source. We couldn't respond. We were, in many ways, unprepared. And maybe that's the most haunting possibility of all, that the universe has been speaking all along and we simply don't have the ears to hear it. Today, radio telescopes like the Green Bank Observatory, the Allen Telescope Array, and massive global networks listen tirelessly for signals. Algorithms sift through mountains of cosmic noise, searching for narrow-band anomalies, for patterns that scream intelligence. Fast radio bursts continue to puzzle us, some repeating, some solitary, each more mysterious than the last. And yet the WOW signal remains in a class of its own, singular, lonely, like a flare seen once on the horizon of an endless sea. Some theorists take this further, imagining that advanced civilizations use methods of communication we cannot even comprehend. Radio may be as outdated to them as smoke signals are to us. Perhaps they communicate through neutrinos or gravitational waves or some dimension of physics we haven't yet discovered. To them, we may be like ants listening for thunder, straining to make sense of a language we cannot decode. If the WOW signal was truly alien, it might not have been a message at all. It might have been static leaking from a technology so advanced, so incomprehensible, that we mistook it for deliberate communication. But consider the irony. It was hydrogen, the most universal signal possible. If they wanted us to hear, they chose the one thing we could understand. Hydrogen is the alphabet of the stars, the beginning of everything. Perhaps that was the message. Start here. Build from this. You are on the right path. The question, though, is whether we ever will build from it. 40 years later, the wow signal remains unexplained, unsolved, unanswered, and perhaps that is exactly why it continues to capture our imagination. Not because we know what it was, but because we don't. Because in the silence of space, one whisper can echo forever. And so we keep listening, not just with our machines, but with our minds, our hopes, our fears. Because the wow signal is more than a scientific anomaly. It is a mirror. It reflects back our longing for connection, our dread of isolation, our hunger to know if we are truly alone. It forces us to ask the question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of time. If the universe is infinite, why has no one else spoken? Or have they, and we just weren't listening closely enough? What if the silence of the universe is not silence at all, but a language we have not yet learned to interpret? The wow signal, 72 seconds of haunting clarity, may have been a word in that hidden dialect, a phrase carved into the static of the cosmos, too brief for us to understand, too strange to decode. But if we step back, if we dare to see the bigger picture, it might represent something even larger, the first crack in the wall of the great silence. For decades, humanity has been tormented by a paradox. If the universe is so vast, filled with billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, and countless planets, then where is everyone? This question, known as the Fermi paradox, has no easy answer. Some say life is rare, fragile, a cosmic accident that almost never happens. Others argue the universe teems with civilizations, but they hide themselves or perhaps destroy themselves before they can spread too far. The wow signal, standing alone in its eerie singularity, may have been a word in that hidden dialect, a phrase carved into the static of the cosmos, too brief for us to understand, too strange to decode. But if we step back, if we dare to see the bigger picture, it might represent something even larger, the first crack in the wall of the great silence. For decades, humanity has been tormented by a paradox. If the universe is so vast, filled with billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, and countless planets, then where is everyone? This question, known as the Fermi paradox, has no easy answer. Some say life is rare, fragile, a cosmic accident that almost never happens. Others argue the universe teems with civilizations, but they hide themselves or perhaps destroy themselves before they can spread too far. The wow signal, standing alone in its eerie singularity, may have been a word in that hidden dialect. A phrase carved into the static of the cosmos, too brief for us to understand, too strange to decode. But if we step back, if we dare to see the bigger picture, it might represent something even larger, the first crack in the wall of the great silence. For decades, humanity has been tormented by a paradox. If the universe is so vast, filled with billions of galaxies and trillions of stars and countless planets, then where is everyone? This question, known as the Fermi paradox, has no easy answer. Some say life is rare, fragile, a cosmic accident that almost never happens. Others argue the universe teems with civilizations, but they hide themselves or perhaps destroy themselves before they can spread too far. The wow signal, standing alone in its eerie singularity, may have been our first glimpse of that answer. If it truly was a message, then maybe it means we are not the first to ask this question. Maybe civilizations rise and fall, each one briefly igniting across the galactic night, each one searching for company, only to discover that by the time signals travel the abyss, the senders have already faded. Imagine 1,000 lighthouses, each blinking across the sea, but never in sync, never meeting. Was the wow signal one such light, a civilization that once burned bright but is now only ash? The timing of the signal is also worth considering. It came in 1977, a time when humanity itself was just beginning to stretch its technological wings, sending probes like Voyager beyond our solar system, carrying golden records engraved with greetings and music. It was as if the universe responded to our first attempt at outreach with its own fleeting whisper. Was this coincidence or synchronicity? And here lies the darker possibility. Maybe the wow signal wasn't meant for us at all. Perhaps it was a call across the stars between two ancient powers, a signal of war, warning, or alliance, passing above our heads like ships exchanging lantern flashes in the night. We, small and unknowing, may have intercepted a fragment of a cosmic drama far beyond our comprehension. If so, then what else passes overhead every day, unheard? The signal's direction offers another layer of intrigue. Sagittarius is not just any constellation. It lies in the direction of the center of the Milky Way, a region dense with stars, energy, and mystery. For millennia, cultures across Earth have looked to Sagittarius as a place of myth and power, and from that very region came this anomaly, as if the galactic heart itself had spoken. Was it coincidence that the signal came from one of the busiest neighborhoods in our galaxy, or was it proof that the heart of the Milky Way holds civilizations older and grander than we dare imagine? Some scientists point out that even if it were artificial, even if it were truly alien, the odds of interpreting its meaning are slim. A signal stripped of context is like hearing one word in an unknown language. It could mean hello, help, or danger. It could mean nothing at all. And yet, the fact that it was heard at all suggests something monumental. The universe is not as quiet as it seems. Others take a more chilling stance. What if the silence is deliberate? What if civilizations know better than to reveal themselves? Perhaps the cosmos is not empty, but patrolled. Perhaps the first rule of survival in the galactic wilderness is simple. Remain quiet. Do not announce your presence. Hide in the shadows, lest predators come. If that is true, then the wow signal might not have been a message of peace, but a slip, a dangerous mistake by someone out there who forgot the rules, and perhaps they paid the price. But then, why hydrogen? Why the universal frequency? That single choice still electrifies scientists and dreamers alike. Because hydrogen is the simplest atom, the first element, the cosmic seed of creation. To use hydrogen's frequency is to speak the one word that every intelligent species would recognize: existence. The wow signal may have been nothing more and nothing less than that single overwhelming statement: we are. And isn't that enough to change everything? For if we accept even the possibility that it was real, just the possibility, then the universe is no longer a cold and empty void. It becomes alive, filled with other minds, other dreams, other histories as rich and strange as our own. The silence becomes charged with potential, every star a possible home, every flicker of radio static a possible greeting. The wow signal has haunted us because it stands alone, but perhaps it was never meant to be the beginning of a conversation. Perhaps it was more like the spark of a match in the dark, brief, fleeting, but enough to prove that fire exists. Enough to make us search harder, listen longer, and never give up hope. And so, for nearly half a century, the wow signal has lingered like a ghost, defying explanation, inspiring wonder and fear in equal measure. Was it alien? Was it natural? Was it something we may never understand? We cannot know. Not yet. But maybe that is the point. Maybe the true power of the wow signal lies not in what it was, but in what it did. It forced us to ask the question that will drive humanity for centuries to come. Are we truly alone? or have we already been answered? There is something unsettling about the idea of a signal that comes once, then never again. A voice calling out in the dark, only to vanish before we can reply. It leaves us dangling between certainty and doubt, forcing us to wrestle with possibilities that border on the terrifying. What if the wow signal was not just a random burst of noise, but a deliberate choice, a carefully measured hello, designed to last just long enough to be noticed, but not long enough to be traced? Think of it like a hunter's whisper in a dark forest, a sound loud enough to let you know you are not alone, but brief enough to conceal where it came from. Could it be that the wow signal was never meant as communication, but as a sign? Subtle, cryptic, and intentionally fleeting? This possibility ties into a theory known among scientists and futurists as the cosmic zoo hypothesis. Imagine that advanced civilizations know we exist but choose not to interfere. They watch us from afar, the way zookeepers might observe animals behind glass. Every once in a while, they leave a trace, just enough for us to suspect, to wonder, to question. The wow signal might have been one such trace, a flicker of acknowledgement. We see you. You are not alone, but you are not ready. And if that is the case, then the implications are enormous, because it means they are close enough to monitor us, yet disciplined enough to remain hidden. What kind of civilization could exercise such restraint? Would humanity, if the roles were reversed, watch quietly? Or would we reach out, impatient and loud, shouting into the void? Of course, there is another angle. Some researchers have suggested that the wow signal might not have been a message at all, but something akin to technological exhaust, a byproduct of alien industry, travel, or energy generation, leaking unintentionally into the cosmos. Just as Earth leaks countless radio and television signals into space, so too might another civilization, unaware or unconcerned that their presence has been revealed. If that is true, then the wow signal becomes not a deliberate greeting, but a glimpse of something far larger, like smoke on the horizon betraying the existence of a distant fire. Perhaps we were never meant to hear it. Perhaps in hearing it, we caught a secret too vast to comprehend. And yet there is something poetic about the fact that it happened at all. Out of all the infinite stars, out of all the endless stretches of silence, humanity happened to be listening at the exact right moment. What are the odds? It's as if the universe itself leaned down and whispered, "Pay attention. You are not as alone as you think." But here's a chilling twist. What if the wow signal was never extraterrestrial at all, but human? Not in the sense of a prank or a mistake, but in the sense of time. Imagine a future humanity, thousands or even millions of years from now, possessing technology capable of transmitting messages backwards across time. What if the signal was us, reaching out across the centuries, sending a message to our ancestors to let them know they were never alone? If that sounds impossible, remember, time, space, and energy remain mysteries we have barely begun to unravel. To us, such a feat seems unimaginable. To a future civilization, it may be as simple as dialing a number. And then there is the most haunting possibility of all, that the wow signal was never meant for communication at all, that it was not a word, but a warning. Perhaps civilizations do send signals, but they are not messages of peace. Perhaps they are markers, like territorial signs left in the wild. This area is claimed. Do not enter. Do not call back. If so, then our curiosity may have brushed against something far more dangerous than we realize. But even if the wow signal was a warning, the question remains, why only once? Why not repeat it, hammer it into our awareness? Unless it didn't need to. Unless one time was enough, like an animal growling once at the edge of the firelight, reminding you that you are being watched. But perhaps in the end, the meaning of the wow signal is not for us to decode. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood, only felt. A jolt of wonder, a crack in the silence, a reminder that the universe is alive with mysteries that defy our imagination. For whether it came from comets, aliens, or even ourselves, the WOW signal did something extraordinary. It forced us to lift our gaze higher. It forced us to listen harder. It forced us to believe that the stars might be speaking. And so every night, telescopes turn toward the sky, searching, straining, listening for another whisper. Decades have passed and the cosmos has remained stubbornly quiet. But still we listen, because once, just once, the silence was broken. And that is enough to change everything. What makes the WOW signal so enduring is not simply the mystery of its origin, but the way it sits at the crossroads of science, philosophy, and fear. For in that 72-second burst of energy, humanity was given something both beautiful and terrifying, the possibility that the universe has noticed us. If it was truly alien, then the signal represents proof of a mind beyond Earth. But here is the question that gnaws at the edges of reason. What kind of mind? Was it benevolent, like a distant neighbor lighting a candle in the dark? Or was it indifferent, a flicker of noise from a civilization so advanced that we are nothing more than ants glimpsing the shadow of a passing giant? The problem is that we, as humans, are desperate to interpret it through our own lens. When we see patterns, we crave meaning. A signal at the hydrogen frequency must mean intelligence. A sudden spike in data must mean a message. But what if we are wrong? What if the WOW signal was something we have no framework to understand? An artifact of physics beyond our imagination? Imagine a tribe deep in a forest hearing the sound of a jet engine overhead. To them it might be thunder, a god, or a supernatural beast. To us it is routine technology. Could the WOW signal have been something equally ordinary? Ordinary, that is, to someone else? And yet, the hydrogen frequency refuses to let us dismiss it. It is too elegant, too deliberate, too perfect. Like a key fitting into a lock, it matches the very thing scientists had predicted for decades would be used in interstellar communication. This is what makes the WOW signal burn in our minds. It's as though the universe handed us exactly what we were looking for, then snatched it away before we could grasp it. Some believe that the absence of repetition is the most revealing clue of all. Communication, after all, requires dialogue. But a beacon does not need to repeat forever. It only needs to be noticed once. Perhaps the WOW signal was not an invitation to talk, but a monument, an interstellar graffiti carved into the stars saying, "We exist, and that is all you need to know." Others suggest that repetition did occur, but we were not listening. Earth's radio telescopes are like ears pressed against a wall, but they cannot listen everywhere all the time. What if the WOW signal did repeat, perhaps 1,000 times, but always when our gaze was elsewhere? The universe is vast, our attention small. How many messages have we missed simply because we were facing the wrong way? This leads us to an even chillier thought. What if the WOW signal was not meant for us, but for someone else? Imagine intercepting a coded transmission during wartime, powerful, mysterious, but utterly incomprehensible. Could the WOW signal have been one such message, destined not for human ears, but for others who share the night sky with us? If so, then what we overheard might not have been a greeting, but a warning. The cosmos is full of secrets. Fast radio bursts continue to confound us, their origins debated and their patterns only partly understood. Strange cosmic emissions flare, vanish, then flare again, as though the universe itself breathes in pulses. Some of these phenomena are likely natural, some may one day be explained. But the wow signal remains uniquely clean, uniquely precise. It does not behave like an accident. It behaves like intention. And intention is what unsettles us, because intention implies someone or something made a choice. They chose to broadcast. They chose a frequency. They chose a moment, which forces us to ask, why? Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was kindness, or perhaps it was something far more alien, an agenda, a test, an experiment conducted on a young civilization still crawling toward the stars. The silence since then might not be silence at all. Perhaps it is expectation. Perhaps the universe is waiting to see what we will do next. Do we remain passive listeners, ears turned skyward, hoping for another chance? Or do we answer? Do we dare to send our own wow back into the night, knowing full well that whoever hears it might not be friend, but predator? The wow signal leaves us with no clear truth, only possibilities. And yet those possibilities change everything. Because if even one of them is true, then humanity's place in the universe is no longer what we thought it was. We are not alone. The question is, do we really want to know who's out there?
Picture the scene again, a quiet night in 1977, a radio telescope sweeping the skies, and suddenly, there it is, a spike of energy, sharp and undeniable, blazing across the datasheets for 72 unforgettable seconds. To Jerry Eman, the astronomer scanning the printouts, it was so extraordinary that all he could do was circle it in red ink and scrawl one word beside it. Wow! That single exclamation has echoed across the decades, becoming the name of one of the most enduring mysteries in scientific history. But the longer we stare at the wow signal, the stranger it becomes. Because for every rational explanation, a deeper question lurks beneath. If it was a comet, as some have claimed, why has no other comet ever reproduced such a perfect narrowband spike at 1420 MHz? If it was interference, why has it never happened again in the same way, despite thousands of hours of listening? And if it was alien, why so brief? Why one voice, one moment, and then eternal silence? Silence, after all, can be as meaningful as sound. Imagine a knock at your door in the dead of night, 3 loud raps, unmistakable, and then nothing. No footsteps, no reply, no second knock. Just the memory of that sound, leaving you to wonder, was it a neighbor, a prankster, a ghost, or something worse? That's what the wow signal feels like on a cosmic scale. And maybe, just maybe, that was intentional. If you were an advanced civilization, would you shout endlessly into the void, announcing your presence to anyone who might be listening? Or would you be cautious, whispering only once, testing the waters, seeing who reacts? The wow signal might not have been the beginning of a conversation, but a test, a probe, a way of saying, "We are here, but are you ready to respond?" This raises an uncomfortable question. What if someone else did respond? We assumed the wow signal faded into silence because nothing followed. But what if we missed the reply? What if the response came years later, in a way or at a frequency we weren't watching? Could another civilization already be waiting for our acknowledgement, wondering why we remain quiet? Then comes the possibility that chills the imagination. What if it wasn't directed at Earth at all? Maybe we were never meant to hear it. Perhaps it was a private transmission, a message between 2 civilizations, cutting across the galaxy like a laser beam, and we, by pure accident, happened to stand in its path for just long enough to catch a fragment. If so, what did we overhear? A declaration of peace? A call for help? Or worse, a signal of war? It's easy to forget that radio waves are not magical. They are physics, energy. They follow rules. And yet the WOW signal bent those rules in a way that screened design, not accident. Its sharp rise and fall matched the rotation of Earth itself, like a lighthouse beam sweeping past our gaze. That is exactly how you would expect a deliberate transmission to appear. Strong at first, fading as our world turned, gone as quickly as it arrived. And so we come to the heart of the matter. Was it really a beacon? If it was, then who lit it? And why? Was it an ancient civilization near the heart of Sagittarius, still broadcasting, patiently waiting for someone to notice? Or was it a relic, a transmission from a people long dead, still echoing across space like a ghost ship adrift in the ocean? Some scientists suggest that the most likely answer is still mundane, a natural source, perhaps one we don't yet understand. But even if that's true, the effect is the same, because the WOW signal reminds us that the universe is still full of mysteries, still capable of shocking us, still vast enough to humble the proudest human mind. But if it wasn't natural, then we must face a question we may not be ready to answer. If the WOW signal was proof of intelligence beyond Earth, then where are they now? Why have they not spoken again? Why has the universe returned to silence? Unless, of course, it never was silent at all. Unless the cosmos is filled with whispers, signals, and broadcasts we simply don't yet recognize. Perhaps the WOW signal was only the first note we've managed to hear in a symphony far larger than ourselves. And if that's true, then humanity is standing on the edge of something monumental. Not just discovery, not just science, but contact. The question is, when the next signal comes, will we be ready to answer?
What lingers in the shadows of the WOW signal is not only the mystery of its source, but the weight of what it implies. If the signal truly came from intelligence beyond Earth, then it means something extraordinary. We are not alone. And yet the silence since that night has been deafening. It forces us to ask, if there are others out there, why haven't we heard them again? This brings us face to face with what scientists call the Great Filter. The idea is simple but terrifying. Somewhere between the birth of life and the rise of a spacefaring civilization, there may be a barrier, a step so difficult that almost no species can cross it. Maybe most civilizations never make it past microbial life. Maybe they rise to intelligence but destroy themselves with war, technology, or environmental collapse. If the WOW signal was real, then it may have been the faint voice of a civilization that managed to cross that barrier, one of the rare few that survived. Or, more chilling still, maybe it was the dying breath of a species that didn't. Think about it. 72 seconds, then silence. What if that's all we'll ever get because whoever sent it is gone now? Entire civilizations could flare into existence, burn brightly for millennia, and then vanish into dust, all before their signals even reach us. The WOW signal might not have been a greeting at all, but an echo, a ghost traveling across the gulfs of time and space from a people who are no more. But suppose they are still alive. Suppose the WOW signal really was a deliberate transmission. Why stop at one? Why never repeat it? Unless they don't want to be found. This leads to another theory, the dark forest hypothesis. Imagine the universe as a vast silent forest at night. Every civilization is a hunter, armed, wary, desperate to survive. To shout into the dark is to risk attracting predators, and so everyone stays quiet. Everyone hides. If that's true, then the WOW signal might have been a mistake, an accidental sound in the forest, one that was silenced as quickly as possible. A civilization revealing itself for just a moment before realizing the danger. But here's the paradox. Silence itself is dangerous. If everyone hides, then no one knows who else is out there. Every rustle in the darkness, every unexplained sound, like the WOW signal, becomes loaded with suspicion. Was it a friendly hello or a trap? Was it meant for communication or for hunting? And yet, despite all the fear, humanity cannot stop listening. The WOW signal ignited something primal in us, the need to know. For decades, we have aimed our most sensitive ears at the sky. Telescopes like Arecibo,
greenbank, and parks, waiting for even the faintest repetition. None has come, and still we wait, because that single, unexplicable event was enough to prove that the search is worth it. Consider how improbable it was to catch it at all. For the WOW signal to appear exactly when the Big Ear telescope was listening in precisely the right direction is like hearing a pin drop in a hurricane. It suggests that the universe may not be empty, it may be filled with countless signals, each flickering only briefly, each requiring impossible luck to detect. Maybe the problem isn't that there are no voices in the cosmos, maybe the problem is that we aren't listening enough or with the right tools. And then there is the haunting thought that refuses to fade. What if the WOW signal was not the first, but simply the first we noticed? Radio waves from Earth have been leaking into space for a century. Our earliest broadcasts, crackling news reports, old jazz songs, the first television shows, are now racing outward at the speed of light, already hundreds of light years from home. Perhaps, somewhere out there, another civilization has circled our signals in their data, writing their own version of WOW and asking the same questions we now ask of them. Two civilizations, separated by light years, staring into the abyss, both wondering if they've just heard proof of company in the dark, both too afraid or too late to answer. And so the WOW signal remains what it has always been, a riddle without a solution, a glimpse of something vast, impossible, and tantalizing, a reminder that the universe is not silent, it is simply waiting. The next question is inevitable. If another WOW comes, louder and clearer than before, what will we do? Do we answer? Do we stay quiet? Or do we risk shouting into the dark forest, hoping that what answers back is a friend, not a predator?
The WOW signal forces us to confront the most unsettling paradox of all. The universe is vast beyond imagination, yet eerily quiet. That silence is not peaceful, it is oppressive, like the breathless pause in a horror film, where you know something must be there, just out of sight. And then, one night in 1977, we heard it, a single knock on the cosmic door. 72 seconds that shook our certainty, and then nothing. But silence can be deceiving. The more we search, the more we realize how blind we truly are. Radio telescopes, no matter how advanced, are like straws pointed at the sky, narrow, limited, able to listen to only tiny fractions of the heavens at once. The WOW signal might not be unique. It might simply be one of countless signals that we've missed because we weren't pointing in the right direction at the right time. Imagine trying to find lightning in a thunderstorm by staring at one small patch of clouds. You might see a flash once and never again, though the storm rages on. Still, the uniqueness of the WOW signal gnaws at us. Why so clean, so narrow band, so unmistakably artificial in its profile? Nature is chaotic, messy, diffuse, but the WOW signal was precise, like a laser beam cutting through the static of creation. That precision is what makes it so unnerving, because it doesn't feel like an accident, it feels like intention. And if there was intention, then we must ask, who or what was behind it? Some imagine a civilization far more advanced than ours, one that long ago solved the riddle of interstellar communication. To them, a burst at the hydrogen line might be nothing more than a test transmission, a routine exercise, or even a relic from an era when they too reached out into the stars searching for company. Perhaps the WOW signal was ancient when it reached us, sent not decades ago, but thousands of years earlier, from a world whose people may no longer exist. We did not hear their greeting in real time, we heard their echo. Others take a darker view. What if it wasn't a greeting at all, but bait? In the silence of the cosmic forest, one sound can be a trap, a signal designed not to invite, but to provoke, to see who answers, to map the hunters and the hunted. If so, then perhaps it is good that humanity never replied. Perhaps silence is the only thing keeping us safe. But silence is unbearable. Our very nature drives us to reach out, to explore, to speak. That is why we have already sent our own messages, our radio waves, our probes, our golden records, sailing through the void with greetings in every language, songs of Earth, and the fingerprints of our DNA. We have already announced ourselves to the universe. If the WOW signal was truly from an intelligence, then the terrifying truth is this: they already know we are here. But then comes a thought even more mind-bending. What if the WOW signal didn't come from them at all, but from us? Imagine a future humanity, thousands or even millions of years ahead of where we are now, having mastered technologies beyond our comprehension. Time, space, communication, all bent to their will. What if they sent a message back through the centuries, a cosmic breadcrumb, to remind us we are destined for greatness? The WOW signal, then, might not be alien at all. It might be a message from our own descendants, a message that says, keep going. You will endure. You will survive long enough to send this signal. It is a beautiful possibility, but also a haunting one, because if that is true, then the silence since 1977 is not neglect, it is patience. They are waiting for us to catch up. And yet, perhaps the cruelest possibility of all is this: the WOW signal meant nothing. It was not a message, not a beacon, not a warning. It was random, meaningless noise, a cosmic coincidence that our hopeful hearts transformed into a miracle. Maybe we are truly alone. Maybe the silence is real. But if that is the truth, then the WOW signal still matters, because it revealed something fundamental about humanity: our hunger to believe, our desperate longing for connection, our refusal to accept solitude in an infinite universe. Whether alien or natural, the WOW signal awakened a fire in us that cannot be extinguished. For 48 years, that fire has burned, and it still burns today, because somewhere in that silence, in that vast darkness, we are convinced someone must be there. The real question is, when they finally speak again, will we have the courage to answer? The WOW signal endures, not because we solved it, but because we didn't. It lives in the space between certainty and imagination, a riddle that refuses to die. And like all great mysteries, it has become more than data on a printout. It has become a story, a legend whispered by the stars themselves. What made it so powerful wasn't just its clarity, or its strength, or its perfect alignment with the hydrogen line. It was the way it shattered the silence. For as long as we've been listening, the universe has answered us only with noise. The hiss of radiation, the crackle of quasars, the faint heartbeat of pulsars. But for 72 seconds, it felt as if the static broke and something alive spoke through it. And in that moment, humanity glimpsed a truth too vast to ignore. We are part of something bigger. Think of how fragile we were in 1977. The Cold War hung like a shadow over the planet. Nuclear fire always one heartbeat away. Our probes had only just begun to leave the solar system. We were still children on the cosmic scale, shouting our first words into the abyss. And then suddenly, the abyss seemed to answer. The WOW signal was a crack in the curtain, a glimpse into a universe that might not be indifferent, but inhabited. Yet it's the brevity that haunts us most. One transmission, one spark. If it was truly a message, it was either unfinished or complete in itself. What if the WOW signal was never meant to be a dialogue, but a statement? Not hello or we are here, but something even simpler. "You are not alone." Perhaps that was all they ever intended to say. And perhaps for a civilization just learning to reach for the stars, it was exactly the message we needed. But then comes the darker side. If the wow signal was deliberate, then why stop? Why remain silent for nearly half a century? Unless the silence is itself the message, unless the transmission was not meant to start a conversation, but to end one, a punctuation mark in the void, closing a chapter we were never meant to read. Others suggest the silence hides something more chilling. Maybe they spoke again, but we didn't understand. Maybe the universe has been filled with signals all along, but we lack the technology, the language, or the imagination to decode them. We caught the wow signal only because it spoke in a tongue we already knew: hydrogen, the universal alphabet of the cosmos. What if the next messages are all around us, humming in frequencies we cannot yet hear? And then, of course, there is the possibility that frightens us most. Maybe no one ever meant for us to hear it. Perhaps we stumbled across a transmission between others, a signal that just happened to cross our path, a cosmic accident, like eavesdropping on a conversation not meant for your ears. If so, then we may have glimpsed not friendship, but secrets, and secrets are rarely safe to overhear. Still, despite all these fears, the wow signal gives us something we cannot let go of: hope. Because even the faintest chance that it was real changes everything. In that one moment, the universe was not empty, it was alive. And even if it never happens again, even if the wow signal remains the only whisper we ever catch, it proves that listening matters, that searching matters, that we must keep pointing our ears to the sky, because someday, tomorrow, or in 1,000 years, the silence might break again. And when it does, the world will never be the same. For the wow signal is more than science, it is myth. It is the modern equivalent of a fire in the sky, a mystery handed down to future generations. And like all great myths, it reminds us of who we are, creatures of curiosity, forever gazing into the unknown, forever asking the question we cannot escape: are we alone? Or has the universe already answered, and we just don't know how to listen? What if the greatest discovery in human history has already happened, and we let it slip through our fingers? The wow signal lingers like a half-remembered dream, proof, perhaps, that someone else exists, yet fading each year into the haze of unanswered questions. We circle back to it endlessly because it represents something we crave more than almost anything else: certainty. The certainty that we are not alone. For centuries, humanity has gazed upward, weaving myths into constellations, imagining gods, spirits, and distant realms beyond the stars. The wow signal was different. It wasn't myth. It wasn't legend. It was hard data, ink on paper, numbers on a chart, science colliding head-on with our oldest longing. It bridged the gap between our imagination and our instruments, whispering that the stories we told around campfires might not have been so far from the truth. But the universe rarely offers answers without riddles, because in the 48 years since that night, no signal has come close to matching it. The cosmos has returned to silence. The knock on the door was never repeated. And that silence is perhaps more profound than the signal itself. It forces us to stare into the abyss and ask, was that single spark our one and only chance at contact? Some scientists argue that we should be cautious in our obsession.
That by clinging to the wow signal, we may be blinding ourselves to other possibilities, other phenomena that are just as extraordinary. After all, nature is stranger than we can imagine. Pulsars once baffled astronomers too. They were so regular, so precise, that their discoverers briefly nicknamed them LGM, for Little Green Men. Only later did we realize they were neutron stars, spinning corpses of suns, ticking like cosmic clocks. Could the wow signal be something like that? An astrophysical phenomenon we simply haven't explained yet? But if so, why has it never repeated? Why has no natural process ever mimicked it again? The truth is, our tools are still primitive. We've listened for a few decades in a galaxy that is billions of years old. It's like dipping a cup into the ocean once and declaring there are no whales. We may need centuries, millennia even, to catch another whisper. The wow signal might not be unique. It might just be the first. And here lies a tantalizing thought. What if the universe is filled with wow signals, happening constantly, everywhere, but we have yet to develop the ears sharp enough to hear them? Perhaps once our technology advances, the skies will light up with voices we never knew were there, a chorus of civilizations that have always been speaking. But then comes the fear. If there are voices, if there are countless civilizations, then why has no one revealed themselves openly? Why no great beacon, no interstellar handshake, no obvious evidence? This is the riddle of the Fermi paradox, and the wow signal sits like a clue at its center. Perhaps the reason we haven't heard more is because most civilizations don't survive long enough to speak loudly. Perhaps every wow signal is a tombstone, a fleeting trace of a people already gone. Or perhaps, more chilling still, they are hiding on purpose. The dark forest hypothesis looms here like a shadow. In a galaxy where survival is everything, silence might be safety. To send out signals is to risk being hunted. And if the wow signal really was a slip, a sound in the cosmic forest, then maybe the reason we never heard it again is simple. They were silenced. But maybe, just maybe, it was something else, a gift, a spark thrown into the darkness, not to start a conversation, but to inspire wonder, to remind us that the universe is alive with mystery and that our role is not to fear the silence, but to pierce it. In that sense, the wow signal may have done exactly what it was meant to do. It made us search harder. It made us dream bigger. It made us ask questions that echo louder than any broadcast. And that is why the wow signal remains so powerful. It may never be solved. It may remain forever a single line of ink on a piece of paper, an unsolved riddle whispered across time. But its true legacy is not in what it was, it is in what it awakened. For in that brief, breathtaking moment, we were given permission to believe that the silence might one day break again, to believe that the universe might not be empty, to believe that somewhere out there, someone might be listening too. The only question that remains is this: when the next wow signal comes, and it will come, whether tomorrow or in 1,000 years, will humanity finally be ready to answer?
The wow signal is more than an unsolved puzzle. It is a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest hopes and fears. Because behind every theory, every debate, lies the same burning question: what does it mean if we are not alone? For many, the idea is exhilarating. Contact with another intelligence would prove that life is not some fragile accident, but a natural outcome of the universe.
It would mean we are part of a greater community of minds stretching across the stars. Perhaps they are older, wiser, guardians of knowledge that could help us survive our own growing pains. Perhaps they have overcome war, greed, and extinction, and could show us how to do the same. The wow signal, in this view, is not a warning, but a promise that the cosmos holds company and that one day we might meet it. But there is another side, a darker side. Because history teaches us that when two civilizations meet, it is rarely a meeting of equals. One dominates, one consumes, one vanishes. If the wow signal was truly alien, then it may not represent safety at all. It may represent danger. The faint roar of a predator we cannot see. The first glimpse of something vast, patient, and unimaginably powerful. The universe is not kind. Stars burn out, planets die, extinction is written into the fabric of time itself. Why would intelligent life be any different? Perhaps the silence we hear is not an accident. Perhaps it is the aftermath of countless civilizations rising, reaching, and then falling back into dust. If the wow signal was a voice, it may have been a rare survivor, or the ghost of one that didn't make it. And yet, the choice of frequency still haunts us. Hydrogen, the simplest and most universal element, the very foundation of the cosmos. If you were trying to speak across light years, across cultures, across species, what better language could you choose? Whoever sent the wow signal, if it was sent at all, wasn't careless. They wanted to be found. That is the detail that keeps scientists awake at night. Because hydrogen doesn't whisper, it shouts. It says, "This was meant to be heard." But why only once? Some believe the answer lies in patience. Perhaps the signal is repeating, but on a timescale we cannot yet comprehend. To us, 72 seconds was everything. To them, perhaps it was just a heartbeat. Maybe they will repeat it again, not in decades, but in centuries. Perhaps the wow signal was never a fleeting event at all, but part of a cycle too vast for us to notice. Others suggest the brevity was the message, a single note, pure and undeniable, meant to stir curiosity without giving away too much. After all, to reveal too much is to risk too much. A civilization cautious of predators might send only the barest whisper, enough to inspire, but not enough to endanger. And isn't that exactly what the wow signal did? It didn't change our world by answering all our questions. It changed our world by giving us one question we cannot stop asking. In that sense, the wow signal may have been less of a broadcast and more of a spark meant to ignite a fire in us, to drive us deeper into the stars, to build better instruments, to listen harder. It may not have been a conversation. It may have been a challenge. And we have risen to it. Since 1977, entire fields of science have grown around the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Radio telescopes have multiplied. Algorithms sift through data with precision beyond anything Jerry Heyman could have imagined. We have begun to map not just our solar system, but thousands of worlds orbiting distant suns. The wow signal may never be explained, but it set us on a path that could one day lead to the truth. And perhaps that was always the point. Because whether it came from comets, aliens, or something stranger still, the wow signal left us with a haunting certainty. The universe is not silent. It only seems silent because we have just begun to listen. The real story is not what we heard in 1977. The real story is what comes next. The telescopes we are building today, vast networks across continents, arrays of dishes linked like one planetary ear, will hear deeper than ever before. They will peer further, listen longer, and scan more of the sky than all of history combined. Somewhere in that data, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 1,000 years, another wow waits. And when it comes, the question will no longer be, did we hear something? The question will be, what do we do when the universe finally answers back? What if the wow signal was never about them at all, but about us? About the way we respond when the infinite suddenly whispers our name? Because whether it came from comets, aliens, or something we cannot yet comprehend, its real power was not in the transmission itself, but in the way it changed humanity. For the first time, we had to face the possibility that we had been overheard. Think about that. Earth is not quiet. For over a century, our planet has been leaking signals into space: radio, television, radar, communication satellites. Our very existence is written into the cosmos, racing outward at the speed of light, carrying our voices, our laughter, our wars, our fears. To us, it's ordinary. To them, it might be extraordinary. The wow signal may not have been a hello. It may have been a "we hear you." And doesn't that thought chill the blood? That someone, somewhere has been listening to us as we grew, watching our first sparks of technology like a parent listening outside a child's door. What have they learned about us from the noise we've thrown into the stars? Do they see us as dangerous, as children, as kin, or as prey? Here lies the heart of the fear. We don't know what intelligence means out there. On Earth, intelligence is a double-edged sword. It gives us art, language, exploration, but also conquest, domination, extinction. If the wow signal was a message, we have no way of knowing whether it came from poets or predators. And yet, even knowing the danger, we cannot look away. We cannot stop listening, because the alternative, the idea that we are truly completely alone in this vast cold universe, is almost worse. Silence is the most terrifying answer of all. The wow signal matters because it broke that silence, if only for a moment. It gave us a taste of something beyond ourselves, a glimpse of the unknown that refuses to fade. Some scientists argue that the wow signal will never be solved because it belongs to an era before we could capture enough data to analyze it properly. Today, our instruments would have recorded every nuance, every frequency, every fluctuation. But in 1977, all we got was a printout, a line of numbers and letters, circled in red pen. That's all we have. The wow signal might remain forever locked in the past, a mystery frozen in time. But isn't that what makes it so powerful? Its mystery is its strength. If we had solved it, if we had proven it was just a comet or interference or a glitch, it would have faded into obscurity. Instead, it remains unsolved, and so it continues to inspire. Every new generation of scientists, dreamers, and storytellers comes to the wow signal and asks again, what if it was real? And perhaps that is the real gift, not certainty, but wonder. Because wonder drives us forward. Wonder is what built telescopes and launched spacecraft. Wonder is what carried us to the moon and what will one day carry us to the stars. The wow signal is a reminder that we are not finished, that the story of humanity is still being written, and that the next chapter may begin with another whisper from the dark. So maybe the wow signal wasn't an accident. Maybe it was the spark we needed, a single flare across the void, telling us, keep listening, keep searching, the universe is waiting. And now, as our instruments grow sharper and our reach stretches further, the question is no longer whether we will hear another wow signal. The question is whether we will recognize it when it comes. Will we be able to decode it, to understand it, to respond? Or will we miss it again, trapped by our own limitations, staring at a line of numbers and wondering what might have been? The universe is vast. The silence is heavy. But the wow signal proves that silence can break, that something, someone may be out there. And once you know that, you can never hear the universe the same way again. Because in the end, the greatest mystery is not what the wow signal was. The greatest mystery is what comes after.
The wow signal is like a scar on the fabric of human knowledge, visible, undeniable, yet impossible to explain. It is the kind of anomaly that refuses to die, precisely because it stands alone. Science thrives on repetition, on patterns, on evidence that can be tested again and again. But the wow signal has no twin, no echo, no partner. It appeared once and then slipped into silence, leaving us haunted by a single possibility. Maybe that was all we were meant to have. Think of it, a signal that may have traveled for centuries, even millennia across the frozen dark. A signal born on a world we have never seen, crafted by hands we cannot imagine, carrying with it the weight of a civilization. And for 72 seconds, we were aligned, our telescope aimed at the right patch of sky, our instruments tuned, our world listening. And then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. A fleeting handshake across the abyss, a moment of connection, so fragile it feels almost mythical. What if it was never meant to repeat? What if it was not the beginning of a conversation, but the end of one? Perhaps the wow signal was the closing statement of a civilization already gone, a monument in radio waves left behind like the ruins of an ancient city. Imagine stumbling across the last message of a people who no longer exist. We were here. We lived. Remember us. Or perhaps it was not meant to be understood at all. Maybe it was an experiment, a test of cosmic physics, a technological accident. To us, it is a mystery. To them, it may have been nothing. That is the most humbling possibility, that the greatest mystery in human history was never meant for us, and that our desperate interpretations are nothing more than shadows on the wall of a cave. And yet the allure of the wow signal refuses to fade, because it represents a crack in the silence, a single moment when the universe seemed alive with intelligence. We build entire narratives around it, alien greetings, interstellar warnings, dying echoes, even messages from our own future. In each interpretation, the wow signal becomes what we most want it to be, a reflection of our fears, our hopes, our longing to belong. That longing has power. It is why we continue to search. It is why, even now, giant telescope arrays scan the heavens, turning mountains into ears pressed against the stars. Every byte of data is sifted for anomalies, every spike in the noise examined, all because of that one night in 1977. The wow signal transformed the way we listen. It gave us reason to believe that listening is not in vain. And perhaps that was always the point. Perhaps its true legacy is not in what it was, but in what it did. It made us curious. It made us daring. It reminded us that silence is not proof of emptiness. It is proof that the story is not yet finished. So, we keep listening. We keep watching. Because the wow signal was never just 72 seconds of radio noise. It was a question hurled across time and space. The only thing left is for us to answer. The wow signal still sits in our collective imagination like a splinter in the mind. For nearly half a century, it has resisted every attempt at closure. Was it aliens? A comet? A glitch? We cannot say. And yet, perhaps its greatest power lies not in what it was,
but in what it forced us to confront. Because in that fleeting moment, humanity was presented with the raw possibility that the silence of the cosmos is an illusion, that the universe may not be empty at all, but alive, filled with civilizations flickering in and out of existence like stars themselves. And if that's true, then every unanswered question we've ever asked about our place among the stars becomes urgent. Who is out there? What do they want? And perhaps most haunting of all, why don't they speak again? The most unnerving possibility is that they did, that the wow signal was not the beginning of a dialogue, but our failure to notice a larger one. What if they have continued speaking, just not in ways we know how to hear? Perhaps their messages hum in neutrinos, in gravity waves, in dimensions of physics we haven't yet touched? Imagine ants trying to detect Wi-Fi signals. The world would be buzzing with information, yet invisible to them. Are we those ants? And then comes the chilling thought. What if they intended for us not to understand? What if the wow signal was never about clarity, but about ambiguity? A puzzle, deliberately unsolvable, meant to provoke curiosity without revealing too much. In that sense, it succeeded perfectly. It has driven generations to look harder, to build bigger telescopes, to stretch the limits of technology and imagination. Maybe that was the real message. Not words, not numbers, but an invitation to grow. But even as we imagine hope, we must confront fear. The universe is ancient, older than anything our minds can truly grasp. Civilizations may rise and fall like sparks from a fire, leaving behind only fragments. What if the wow signal was such a fragment, a last broadcast, the death cry of a people who knew their time was ending? If so, then we did not hear a greeting, we heard a ghost. And yet, isn't a ghost still proof of life? Even if the senders are gone, the signal remains. It crossed space, endured time, and landed here, on Earth, at just the right moment. It brushed against us like a shadow from another world. That alone changes everything. Because now every time we point our ears at the sky, we cannot help but wonder, will it happen again? Will we catch another burst, another anomaly, another fleeting proof that we are not alone? The wow signal taught us to expect the unexpected, to believe that the silence might one day crack again. And maybe that is the true legacy, not the signal itself, but the hunger it left behind. The hunger to listen, the hunger to know, the hunger to believe that in this vast and ancient universe, the human story is not the only one being written. We are listeners in the dark, waiting. And the wow signal was the first whisper that taught us how. The question that remains is simple, yet infinite. When the next whisper comes, will we finally understand what it's trying to say?
The wow signal is, at its core, a paradox wrapped in static. A moment that should have been ordinary, a blip of data in a long night of listening, transformed into one of the most tantalizing mysteries in the history of science. For 72 seconds, the universe seemed to lean closer, exhale, and then retreat back into silence. And that silence may be the loudest part of the story. For silence is never neutral. Silence can be mercy or menace. It can mean patience or indifference. And when it comes from the stars, silence is almost unbearable. We long for company, for proof that the universe holds more than our fragile world. Yet what we are given is absence, an unanswered knock, a door left closed. Still, the wow signal refuses to let go of us. Every attempt to explain it, comets, satellites, radio interference, feels too small, too convenient. None account for the perfection of the signal, the way it aligned exactly with the frequency of hydrogen, the cosmic lingua franca. That is what makes it burn in our imaginations, because it wasn't just noise, it was right. Right where we'd always said an alien transmission might be. Right in the heart of Sagittarius, a direction teeming with stars. Right in the moment when humanity was just learning to listen. Coincidence? Perhaps. But how many coincidences does it take before chance starts to look like intention? Some believe the wow signal was never meant to be repeated, that its purpose was not conversation, but confirmation. A single word spoken across the void. Yes. Yes, you are not alone. Yes, there is more. And yes, the universe is listening too. That may be all they needed to say, because sometimes one word is enough to change everything. Others imagine something far stranger. What if the wow signal wasn't meant for us at all? What if it was a transmission between others, cutting across the galaxy, never intended for human ears? If so, then what did we overhear? A greeting? A warning? A signal of war or of peace? The fact that we do not know and cannot know gnaws at us. Because if we are eavesdropping on a cosmic dialogue, then the silence may not be silence at all. It may simply be the pause between words, a pause so long that to us it feels eternal. And then perhaps the most haunting thought of all, what if the wow signal wasn't a voice from outside, but a voice from inside, from the future? Imagine a humanity that survives 1,000,000 years, masters time, and sends back a single message to its ancestors. What would we say to ourselves? Would it be a book, a song, a detailed instruction? Or would it be something far simpler, just a signal, pure and undeniable, to tell us, you make it, you endure? What if the wow signal was not alien at all, but human, echoing backward across time? These theories may sound wild, but the truth is, the wow signal invites them, because in the absence of certainty, imagination rushes in to fill the void, and perhaps that is its greatest gift. It forces us to confront the unknown, not with fear alone, but with creativity, with wonder, with the humility to admit that the universe may be far stranger than we can conceive. So we keep listening, not just with telescopes, but with stories, with dreams, with questions that stretch across generations. The wow signal may never be explained. It may remain forever a single, unrepeatable anomaly. But in that mystery lies its power. Because whether it was alien, natural, or something beyond either, it has already done what no other signal could. It made us believe the universe might be alive with voices. And once you believe that, the silence is no longer empty. It is full of possibility. The wow signal is not just a memory, it is a promise that the story of humanity is not confined to Earth, that one day, whether by accident or design, the silence will break again. The only question is, will we be ready to listen when it does?
The wow signal is not just a scientific anomaly. It is a legend, a myth for the modern age, carved not in stone or story, but in radio waves. When Jerry Emmons circled that spike of data in red ink, he unknowingly drew a line between certainty and wonder. That red circle has become our modern Rosetta Stone, a symbol of the one time the cosmos may have whispered directly into our ears. And in that whisper, there is a truth too large to ignore.
Even one unexplained signal is enough to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the universe. Imagine for a moment the sender. Perhaps it was a civilization thousands, even millions of years older than ours. A people who have mastered physics, who have outlived their own crises, who see the galaxy not as an endless void, but as a community of worlds. To them, sending a signal might be as trivial as turning on a light. Maybe they weren't even trying to talk to us. Maybe we caught the spillover, the cosmic equivalent of overhearing laughter from the next room. Or perhaps it was something darker. A flare in the dark forest, a sound meant not as greeting, but as bait. If civilizations are hunters, as some fear, then the wow signal could have been a lure, a sound designed to test who is listening. And if that is true, then perhaps we should be glad it never repeated. Perhaps silence is the only thing keeping us safe. But humanity does not thrive on silence. We thrive on connection. And that is why we keep searching. Every telescope aimed at the heavens is a question, is someone there? Every unexplained burst of energy is a heartbeat. Was that them? And though the wow signal has never come again, it continues to remind us that listening is not madness, it is survival. Because if the universe is alive with other voices, the only way to know is to keep our ears open. The strangest truth of all is this: the wow signal does not need to be solved to matter. Its very existence, its sheer impossibility, has already changed us. It has inspired generations of scientists, dreamers, and explorers to build better instruments, to imagine boldly, to push beyond the edges of what is known. It has fueled both fear and hope, uniting them into a single drive to reach further into the stars. And maybe that was the point all along. Maybe the wow signal was never meant to be understood. Maybe it was meant to awaken us, to force us to look beyond our wars, our borders, our fragile world, and realize that we are part of something larger, that we belong to the cosmos, and the cosmos might, in some strange way, belong to us. In the end, the wow signal is both a question and an answer. A question because it remains unsolved, an answer because it proves the silence is not unbroken. It proves that listening matters, that searching matters, that hope is not foolish, but necessary. And so we listen. Across deserts, mountains, and oceans, radio dishes turn their faces to the sky, straining for the next whisper. We wait, we wonder, because once long ago the silence cracked, and we will never forget it. Perhaps someday the stars will answer again, and when they do, humanity's story will change forever. Until then, we live with the mystery. We live with the silence. We live with the memory of that one word, scrawled in red ink, that still echoes like thunder across the void. Wow.